welcome everybody to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and smiling like I always am because I have these great little pre-conversations with folks, and I keep hitting my cord, and I'm going to knock this microphone off. But so today I'm super excited to have Tanya Fasnacht. Did I said Fasnacht? All right, Jolliffe. And she is, and I'm going to read this amazing list because I just love it. Founder and provider of L.I.T Wellness Solutions. Top Nutritionist of the Year 2025 by the International Association of Top Professionals. Author of The Mindful Me Journey, a 40-day guided journal toward a healthier relationship with food and exercise. Registered and licensed dietitian, nutritionist, and certified integrative mental health professional. That's all amazing. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, you start to read all that and you just go, oh, I have accomplished something in my life, haven't I?
I love it. I love it. I know when
Yeah.
I've done my bio before and wrote it all out and everything. And then they were like, we need it shorter. And I was like, oh, I guess I did kind of la, 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 la.
Right. It's like that balance between you don't want to toot your own horn too much, but you want to toot it a little bit. So, yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, my gosh, all of that is just absolutely amazing. And so I told you before hitting record, I've been on a health, I really focusing on the food I put into my body. The past couple of years had a autoimmune response to mold and really struggled with histamine for a while. Now I'm back to normal other than this crazy psoriasis rash.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, I know now, like I really am cognizant of like food triggers and those types of things. So is that something that you work with people on and help them understand? Like, I know everybody can respond differently to different things, right?
It's funny because I just had a consultation this week and one last week for people that are dealing with the same sorts of things with autoimmune issues, newly diagnosed or newly inflamed. And so actually, yeah, it's happening more and more and more. And Mediterranean eating approach really does lower all those inflammation trigger points. Aspartame is another one that I don't think people maybe pay as much attention to as a trigger, but it really is. And so, they're drinking diet soda or they're eating lower fat yogurts that have aspartame in it because they think, well, the dieting lower calories better. If you can get aspartame out of your diet and all cost, in addition to what you're doing with the Mediterranean approach, I think you'll see way less inflammation.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like the only thing I drink is water.
Yep.
That is it. I'm just a
Is it
water kind of
purified
gal.
water? Is it purified water?
Yes, it's purified water, and every other water that I drink, I put a pinch of pink Himalayan
Yep. Good.
salt in
Salt.
it for
Good.
the, I mean, well, obviously all the little nutrients, wonderful nutrients that are in
But
it, but
help
just
you actually absorb it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what a nutritionist that I had
Yeah.
worked with years ago had told me, and I love it. I love the taste of it. Like I think
Yeah.
it makes the water taste better.
The other key too is to remember, a lot of times people complain about, well, it just runs right through me. It just runs right through me. And I always like to use the example of a wet sponge and a dry sponge. So if you have a dry sponge and I put it in a fourth of a cup of water, it's going to soak, all those cells are dry and they're parched, and it's going to soak all that water up really fast. But if I take that same sponge and I put it into another fourth of a cup of water, hardly anything will happen because every cell has what it needs. So it doesn't need to make a big shift. Well, you have to think about your renal tubules, that's the last stopgap for before it's excreted. And so if you're really parched and all that you drank a whole bunch of water all at one time, none of the cells really took it and it just kind of went right through you, which is kind of the opposite of the sponge effect of what I was saying, in that you gave too much water too fast and your cells didn't know what to do with it. But if you're well hydrated, then it just kind of melds right in, which is the opposite of the example I just gave. But if you drink too much too fast, it'll just go through you. But if you sip within about 1 cup, one out through it in an hour, you won't even notice. It's just more of a steady state type of
Oh,
situation.
that's fascinating. I'd never heard that before because
Yep.
I'm one when I in the morning, like I'll do in the morning, I actually do my pink Himalayan salt with some lemon in it as
Uh-huh.
well. And but I'm like, like
Yep.
chug a lug it down.
Yeah. And then you might notice that runs, you got to go to the bathroom pretty soon. But if you sip it at a slower rate, the tubules know what to do with it better. And so you're not excreting it as fast. So about a cup an hour is a good rate. And if you're awake 12 to 14 hours, you're going to get your 12 to 14 cups and you don't have to worry about being dehydrated.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That is so cool to know. Wonderful. Thank
There
you
you
for
go.
that. Yeah, good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now I know like LIT Wellness Solutions. What I when I was researching and looking at all that you do, you work a lot with corporations and companies, right?
I work with trucking companies predominantly. I got into the trucking industry about 10 years ago. Actually, it's more like 15 years ago or so. When I worked for Spark People, which was a Cincinnati-based online health and wellness company, I was a health coach with them. And I managed message boards back before Facebook was really a big thing. That's where people communicated, was on message boards. And so I was a moderator of a message board and a healthy eating expert, and I would answer diet and nutrition and weight questions. And so there were a lot of women, especially, trying to help their husbands who were truck drivers to be able to stock their trucks healthfully and eat healthy on the road instead of eating at fast food, greasy spoons, and all that kind of stuff. And so that led me then to work with truck drivers. And then that kind of led me to be a subject matter expert for the kind of health and wellness trucking industry. So I have worked with some other nonprofits and that kind of things, but largely it's trucking companies that I work with. Yeah.
Oh, that's really awesome. And so now um do you do presentations with them? Do you do classes? How is it that you
Uh,
connect with them and work with them?
Well, a variety of ways. I actually was just on Sirius XM on last Saturday with the Women in Trucking segment. We were doing, it's a mental health awareness month. So we were doing kind of talking gut health and mental health. So I do some public speaking that way. I also have spoken at Women in Trucking at their Accelerate conference and have been a presenter there. And then I also work with Rolling Strong, which is a company that I had worked with for about 5 years or so. And then when I started on my own, now I am a contractor with them. That's one of my accounts. And I work with a trucking company through with them and try to help work with their HR and their safety and their driver managers to try to help their drivers make sure they keep drivers on the road because they have to maintain a medical certificate in addition to their driver's license. They have to have a medical certificate that they pass every 2 years, 1 to 2 years, to say that they're safe to drive on the road. And so sometimes drivers, they put it off too late and their blood pressure is out of control, their blood sugar is out of control. So we work with them like one-on-one in that kind of situation. But then I work at the corporate level trying to help companies look at strategies and solutions to help keep their drivers healthy and well, looking at their wellness culture, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's so
So
wonderful. And I know you just
combination.
mentioned one of those hot topic uh conversation pieces, which is gut health.
Yep.
I
Yep.
see it everywhere now. Well, especially me, I think I'm a little more tuned in because now
Hmm.
I understand psoriasis isn't a skin issue so much as a gut issue.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And those good bugs versus the bad bugs and what's the combination of those that are in there. Yeah. I just actually did a blog because May is Mental Health Month, and I had all this in my mind from the conversation I had had with SiriusXM and Ellen Voya. So I just put a blog out yesterday on gut health is and mental health, and it's out on my website if anybody's looking. But it really is true. It's your second brain, and it really there's a connection between your enteric system and your central nervous system, and there's just a really big connection. And I will say lots and lots of processed foods. That's one of the key reasons we tell people cut out your processed foods because all those chemicals that are in there are foreign to your gut. They're not things your gut is used to using or knows how to use. And then when you add genetically modified foods on top of that, that's again foreign, and your gut doesn't know what to do with it. And so that's one of the reasons we've got diseases. That's one of the reasons we've got so much gut health issues. It's one of the reasons we've got cancer rates of colon cancer, because there's all these things being put into the gut that the gut doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. And one of the things and this is a little bit of a left turn here. One of the things that has come up for me more than once, I've worked with a couple of nutritionists who I just think are amazing. I just have to say, I think nutritionists are just like godsends on earth, because truly, like the one I think saved my life because I was so sick, and
Right,
but doing so much better because of the
right.
things we did. But um this most recent nutritionist I've been working with, what I find fascinating that she had mentioned was that um this inflammation, yeah, it's related to gut health, but the thing that's throwing my gut health out of whack, because I'm eating right and I'm doing all the things right, is my trauma history.
Mm-hmm.
And so the impact of, yeah, I was always living in this hyper aroused state for,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I had panic attacks for 25 years after all my horrible trauma. So for like 40 something years,
Right.
I lived in a constant state of hyper arousal. And so that, I
Mm-hmm.
love it that you also are certified in the mental health arena, because what a connection, right? There's a really big connection.
And one of the reasons that I went that route, it's kind of funny how, you kind of follow this career journey, and it kind of leads you in these different directions, and you go, none of these match, none of these go together. And then you realize they really do. So my first job out of college, or out of my internship, because I did my college and then I did an internship, was I worked at University Hospital with end-stage organ disease. So kidney failure, liver failure, and very, very brittle diabetes. And then kidney, liver, and pancreas transplants. So the very sickest of the sick. And so you would deal with these people with diabetes, some of which they were waiting for a transplant, and some of which are never going to get a transplant. And so you're trying to manage calories in and calories out, and that whole diet mentality, and how many insulin units and all of that stuff. And what I learned as a really 20 something new person in the profession was stress management, and the stress of the finances and the work, and that they have to miss work, and they it's costing them so much, and all of those lifestyle stressors were affecting their blood sugar. And that really brittle diabetes in so many ways is just out of control emotions and feelings that are spiking all of the system out of whack. Then I, transitioned. I stayed home with my kids for few years, and then I transitioned into working on message boards, and I work with these women, and they're all into calories in and calories out, and they're tracking and all this stuff, and they're doing all this stuff right, but their weight isn't moving. And then you start to find out, well, their stress and their anxiety is off the charts. So then you deal a little bit more, and you deal with some people with disordered eating. And I deal more and more with people with disordered eating as we use my book, and I'm counseling one-on-one. And you realize there's 5 pillars of health. There's your nutrition, there's your fitness, there's your stress management, there's your hydration, and there's your sleep. And when sleep and hydration and stress are out of whack and not managed, it doesn't matter what you do with exercise and eating, because you've got 3 parts of those pillars of health that aren't being honored and aren't being, connected. So your stress and your anxiety and your past trauma, and you're triggered. We're all triggered every single day. We're triggered by things we hear. We're triggered by things we see. We're triggered by things that we, experience. And so we have to recognize those triggers and understand, what do they go back to? I was just triggered. I was triggered by something somebody said, because when I heard them say it, I experienced it as my coach saying it to me, because that was a big trigger for me for a number of years, because I developed disordered eating in college. And so I would be triggered by things that were said. People are triggered all the time. And when, sometimes you turn to food for it, sometimes you turn to alcohol, sometimes you turn to drugs, sometimes you turn to sex or pornography or whatever. But the reality is, the trigger is what you need to honor. The trigger is what you need to address, not the behavior. You can't separate one from the other. And so being able to bring that into the work that I do with people as they're trying to deal with food, people with night eating issues, restricting issues, binging issues, purging issues, it all goes back to some kind of trauma, more than likely. And so
Yeah.
helping them be able to navigate that and understand that. Binge eating disorder, is looking for comfort in all the wrong places. And how do we start to put those pieces together of what were you triggered by? Can you name it? Can you name the emotion you're feeling and experiencing? What are the feelings and emotions that are going through it? How are you talking to yourself? What's your mindset? And how can you reframe and redirect it without it going off the rails?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I have to tell you, one of the things that I found when I first stepped onto this journey in the last 4 years of this physical health,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and we did the whole like eliminate everything and then do slow introduction to see if
Uh-huh.
I was responding to anything. And um then once I was able to be like, oh, I'm not having histamine reactions anymore. I can start to eat regular, like
Mm-hmm.
normal, right?
Right.
And one of the things I found was if I was restricting myself, it made me so much more stressed. But then when I did what you just said, and I started journaling and I started writing letters to God and I started like deep diving, like, where is this coming from? And I thought, and I discovered, oh my gosh, I grew up food deprived at times,
Mm-hmm.
and or like my parents didn't have a whole lot of money, and
Uh-huh.
there was just a whole lot around it
Right.
besides that. Like my mom was an alcoholic, but she would go out to dinner with her friends, and her boss would buy her these dinners, and then she'd come home with a doggy bag for the dog of filet mignon, while my sister and I were dumping can of spaghettios into
Uh,
the pot. So to me, when I was like depriving myself, oh my God, it just made my anxiety just shoot through the roof. And I didn't
yep.
realize that's what was happening.
Right. And that's what I find over and over and over again. And sometimes um, people can be defensive and be like, well, no, my parents, I had good parents, and I don't want to blame my parents. And it's like, we're not blaming your parents. We're recognizing that we grew up in a house with a clean plate club. I'll use my own son as an example. He's grown and has a child now that he's learning how to feed as a parent. And I didn't think I had a clean plate club rule. I had grown up with that. I didn't think I had that. But it turns out I did. It turns out that was an unspoken expectation of, here is your food. I've portioned it for you. I know as a dietitian what you should eat and how much, and here's your food, and this is the right portion. And it was the expectation that you would eat it. Now you could have seconds if you were still hungry, but it was an unspoken expectation that I didn't even know was there, because I thought in my mind I wasn't saying it, so therefore it wasn't there. And so, no matter, every parent, I say this to my clients all the time, this has nothing to do whether you had good parents or bad parents. Parents are doing the best they can do. They mean well, they love you, even when they're giving the filet mignon to the dog. Your mom still meant well. She still thought, well, they have food to eat. They aren't going to like this anyway, or something like that, right? And so we're not saying that there's blame to the parent. All we're saying is, let's recognize where this trigger is, what's the anxiety push point here, and how can we learn how to navigate that?
Yeah, that's
It's
so
not
beautiful.
about placing blame. It's about recognizing the trigger, recognizing the pressure point so that we know how to build a strategy or solution around it. I picked LIT Wellness Solutions because I want to be about solutions. I want to be about helping people find the strategy that's going to work for them for the solution or the problem that they're trying to manage. And everybody's different. And so the solution that you need is different than the solution that I need and that somebody else needs. So we're each an experiment of one. Let's look at the strategies and solutions that are going to work for you, your anxiety, your pressure points, your triggers, so that you can have a healthy relationship with food.
Yeah, beautiful. And I love that. Thank you. And thanks for clarifying
Mhm.
that, because I realize not everybody has been a long time listener. Like this might be somebody's first episode they're listening to. And I have to just throw
Uh-huh.
out there, like my mom and I, on her last few years of life, she decided to stop drinking. And so she had 2.5 years of sober. And oh my gosh, she became my best friend. And we did so much healing work together. And we talked about those kinds of things. And it was just amazing to be able to share with her and for her to learn. And yeah, she was just became my best friend and the mom I needed in the end. And
Right.
so what a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all in God's timing, right? There, you can look and say, gosh, wouldn't it have been nice if it had been sooner? But
Yeah.
gosh, thank goodness it happened, so that you had
Oh,
that experience. Uh,
yeah.
so
Yeah, for
yeah, it's
sure.
wonderful.
And one of the things that to go back a little bit that you were talking about, so like for me, I do Epsom salt baths a couple days a week, right? But it's
Mhm.
more that while I'm in the Epsom salt bath with a little bit of fractionated coconut oil, like I do my things, right, to
Right,
bring my skin some soothing. It's
right,
meditation. I meditate every time I'm in there. And
right.
so I'm doing that mental, that, you said the five pillars, which I loved, and I've not heard that before either. So thank you for that. And so, yeah, and I've realized how much calmer than my skin is as a
Yeah.
result.
We're in a society that's bombarded, and I have to make myself remember what life was like before social media, what life was like when we only had three channels or four, and that you were the remote control, that you had to get up and go change it yourself, or you send your kid over there. I mean, we grew up in a very, very different time, and life was very different. And where we are today, we are just so bombarded. I mean, I could get into the whole thing. I have Wi-Fi in my house, but it's not healthy for me to have Wi-Fi in my house. And I wear a smartwatch, but I know there's risks to that. And I know there's health implications to that, especially mental health, because you have these things bouncing off your skin all the time and feeding biofeedback. And so that's changing your frequency. And so we're all torn between the comforts and the conveniences that this life has to offer, and what are they doing to us emotionally, mentally, physically. And so it is a balancing act, and there is no one size fits all, you know. But recognizing that there are those pillars, and recognizing that they have to be balanced, and that we have to take into consideration all those aspects. Our mental well-being, our soul, a mind, will, and emotions, right? So if you think about it from a well-being standpoint, your will is based on your mental well-being and your emotional well-being. Those two things determine what you will or won't do. And so when you can break that down and say, okay, my soul, my mind, will, and emotions, my mental well-being and my emotional well-being have to be in line if I'm going to make good choices and good decisions. And so when we can just keep that centered and look and say, scriptures tell us, I do what I don't want to do, and what I don't want to do, I do. And that's because that mental well-being and that emotional well-being and that fleshly nature want to pull us in a direction that even we don't want to do, but we just are drawn to. And the enemy is always trying to get us, right? It's a battle, and the enemy is always trying to lead us in a direction that he wants us to go versus where God wants us to go to be the very best we can be, body, mind, soul, and spirit.
Yes. Hence why when I opened the pantry today and I said my college girl is home, and I
Yep.
was like, oh, I've done so good today, and I drank my salt water, and I did, I was like had an orange, and like I was just so happy to open those pantry doors. I was like, Pop Tarts. Dang nabbit.
And I deserve it.
Right, right, right.
Yep. Yep. We all
I love
face
it.
those all the time, for sure.
I love it. And I have to tell you a little story really quick. And I may have mentioned it on the show before, but it's just for me. Um, so again, growing up in the household that we were, we didn't have like a lot of treats or any of that kind of thing. And so my best friend, I practically lived at her house.
Mhm.
And um, so her mom, whom I adored with all of my heart, she was just the kindest, gentlest soul. She would go to the store, and when I'd go over to the house, she'd say, Teri, I filled your cabinet. And I would just be like, oh my God. And I would open it. It was all Little Debbie's, like Little Debbie snack
Uh,
cakes. And to me, now when I see, I don't eat Little Debbie snack cakes
mhm.
anymore, but when I did, to me, there was like this emotional, like, but
Yeah,
like joy thing, right? And so
yeah,
that's what happens with people a lot,
yeah,
right? With when you say like
totally. Uh,
you get comfort from the food.
well, as I often say to people, you get comfort from the memory, but you experience it through the food. That's what brings that memory back up. And so, for instance, if your mom would make homemade cookies for you, for some people, their moms would make homemade cookies and they would have them after school. And so they associate homemade cookies with my mom making time to make this for me and having a glass of milk and cookies after school. And we would sit and talk, and it would be this great time. Okay, other people have no experience like that. Your experience wasn't like that. Other people's wasn't like that. But for them, that was the experience. And it was like, I just, my mom's been gone for a few years. And so when I have cookies and milk, I just remember those great talks after school with my mom, right? And so what they're looking for is that memory and reliving that memory, but they do it through the food that they experienced or with grandma's home baked pies, or you can think of any homemade, Thanksgiving meal or Christmas meal or whatever. And what we talk about a lot of times with my clients is you can relive those memories anytime you want it. You do not have to have the food to do it. So, you might pull out a magazine and you might look at cookies and milk and then will yourself to say, oh, remember that time that my mom after school, and take yourself there. And so it's a matter of just reliving those memories because we want to hold on to those and we want to cherish those, but we don't have to follow the same unhealthy practice. And having cookies and milk is not horrible by any means, but when you're trying to lower the things that are affecting your body or lower your weight and watch the calories and that kind of things, then we got to be careful of those types of behaviors that we're incorporating and say we can still have the memories and the experience without the extra calories or the antigens that are affecting our body or our skin or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I have to say, to this day I love apples, like red apples, Gala,
Uh-huh. Yep.
Fuji, love them all,
Uh-huh.
right? Like I
Right.
love apples. And and it is so related to my grandma Kitty because she was like our babysitter, right?
Right.
Because both my parents would be working. And I loved watching her. She could peel a without breaking the skin, like
Continuous.
this perfect spiral. And I
Uh-huh.
just remember as a kid, like, bouncing up and down, and I would gobble it up. And
Yeah.
I, so to this day, when I eat an apple, I'm like, oh, grandma. So I so
Yep.
get it.
Yep, yep. And it is those connections. It really is. And that's important. It's important to have those warm, fuzzy feelings. But we just want to be careful when we're using food for non-food reasons, non-hunger
Yeah.
reasons, you know.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Keep that in
Wonderful.
check. And that's kind of where the journaling kind of comes in with the mindful me, because you can use that to kind of journal, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And is it based on an emotional need, a mental need? Am I actually physically hungry? Those types of things.
Yeah, well, you led me right to my next question, which was
Oh,
your book. So there you go. So that is it's a guide for folks to work through
yeah,
those
it's a
maybe those emotional connections to
It's a
food.
doing book, definitely. And it helps us look at the four facets of eating: what we're eating, when we're eating, how we're eating, and why we're eating. But it's in a journaling form. There's prompts there, so you just answer the prompts. And so it helps you look at all four phases of the eating process, but in a way that you can look at when you're using food for non-hunger reasons and when you're using it for emotional reasons, and how did you feel? And as well as, how did you feel physically after you ate? Did you have a stomach ache? Did you overeat? Were you over full? Were you anxious after you eat? Did you feel guilt and shame? Like, that kind of stuff. And to try to help you kind of understand and look for the patterns. So it's built up into 4 phases of 10 days. So it's a 40-day guide, 10 phases, 10 days for each phase. And then there's a reflection at the end of each phase that helps you summarize your patterns and then helps set you up to take it to the next step in the next phase, to change the behavior, to substitute something in its place. For instance, maybe if you're drinking a lot of soda and you're seeing a lot of calories are coming from that, starting to substitute water in place of some of those, and beginning to make those steps towards healthy whole food eating versus packaged comfort food eating.
Yeah. And I have to say, I find myself, I love whole foods. I was never a veggie eater, but man, now I love Brussels sprouts and broccoli and all asparagus. Oh my gosh, I love asparagus. Yeah.
Sometimes it's a matter that we had it really made very badly. It was mushy and it didn't have much
Oh yeah.
flavor. And so when you have it made well, you're just like, oh, this is what it's supposed to taste like.
Right, right. It's so true. I
Yeah.
mean, my friends, I'm in a group text with all my high school girlfriends, and they'll be like, how can you even think about eating Brussels sprouts? Like, because you have to make them the right way. Like, if they're
Right.
crispy, oh my gosh,
Yes.
so good.
Balsamic vinegar and oh,
Yeah,
so yummy. I remember the first time I had hummus in college, and it was like wallpaper paste. It was horrible. And I literally never had hummus again for 20 years. And then I was at somebody's party and it was like a Mediterranean flavored hummus. And I was like, man, this is so good. Is this what I've been missing out on? Because it didn't taste anything like the first time I had it. But now I have since had bad hummus again, where it's
yeah.
unflavorful. And I'm like, yeah, that makes all the difference. Flavor makes all the difference. Seasoning makes all the difference. And seasoning doesn't have to be salt. I mean, there's a lot of seasoning that can really change and enhance anything. I started using this. You probably know this, but Chick-fil-A, one of the reasons their chicken sandwich tastes like it does is that they cook it in or marinated, I should say, in pickle juice.
Oh,
That's partly what gives it its flavor. So I started adding a little pickle juice to my olive oil when I'm making and sauteing my chicken breasts. And it's like, man, this tastes very similar to Chick-fil-A. So, you can just try new things, add new flavors in, and really change the flavor of chicken that you've had, how many times, but adding some tahini or adding, different flavors and profiles to really enhance it and make it taste different. And that's what keeps food interesting. It doesn't have to be a lot of processed foods and sugars and salts and all that stuff. It's just flavors. It's really just adding and enhancing those flavors.
oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
I've loved doing that. Last night I was like, oh, I'm gonna make some chicken breast, and I was gonna do a salad until I realized, oh, my lettuce is bad. Ugh.
Uh,
So I was like, well, I'll just go ahead and just have this salad. And I did a little fruit bowl, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I was like, what kind of spices do I have in the fridge? And then I was
yeah.
put some thyme and some rosemary, and oh my gosh, it was so
Mhm.
good.
Mhm.
And everybody came downstairs and said, why does it smell so good in here?
Yep. Yeah. So it's amazing when things are made bad, we say we don't like them. And then when we have them made well, we're just like,
Yeah,
it's like being reintroduced to it all over again.
right,
For
right, for
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, gosh, this has just been so delightful and wonderful, and I could sit and talk to you probably for, a few hours. But I certainly want to give you an opportunity to leave folks with any final thoughts or touch upon anything that you wanted to touch upon that we didn't get a chance to.
I just would close by saying, we all have a journey. We all have things that we experience growing up with food. We all have different relationships with food. Sometimes it's healthy, sometimes it's unhealthy. Um, I'm all about recognizing a non-diet approach to healthy eating and being and finding your best weight based not on strict diets and the whole calories in, calories out. I want people to look at all five of those pillars to live a healthy, happy whole life. And if you have a bad relationship with food for whatever the reason, whether it's my journaling program or it's another journaling book that you pick up, or just the habit of kind of writing down what are your emotions and feelings around food, what's the timing of the spacing of food and that kind of thing. Do a little bit of that work and really see kind of where did I get off track with my relationship with food, and what are the steps that I might need to get back on track to have a healthier relationship, to see the good in vegetables and whole foods and reducing those processed foods that are kind of introducing foreign things to my body, and maybe what's making me not feel so good. Maybe not recognizing that, gosh, maybe I could feel better if I was eating better and really treating my body a little bit more like the temple that it is. And if I can help anybody in that journey, in the United States, I am covered by about 24 states with insurance that your insurance might cover working with me. And I work privately with people. I've worked with people internationally as well as throughout the 50 states. So if that's a need that I could fill, I would certainly love the opportunity to help anybody develop that healthier relationship with food or exercise.
Awesome. And so how do folks connect with you if they decide they would like to do that or learn more?
LITwellnesssolutions.com.
Awesome. All right. All right.
Great.
Well, this has just been wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And again, the work you do. I mean, I'm a huge fan and cheering you on because what a difference it makes I know in my life and certainly other people's. So
Yeah, wonderful talking with you, and I wish you all the best as you continue to fine tune all those things to help you feel better and better each and every day.
awesome. All right.
Great.
Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag Hope for Healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's Teri, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.